Oh, yes, please silence your phones. We do have a couple people. Chris Webb will be capturing the stories for us, and we'll be putting them on our website for family members for people who want to share with their family. And Hannah Maxwell, Hannah, where are you? Hannah is taking a clip of this experience for a documentary. Would you call it a documentary? Yeah, mini doc for her collection of community stories. So let's begin. And our first speaker, let me see. Can you? I have it in my pocket. My pocket is long. Ellen, come on up. Ellen Burley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It's September 13th, 2009. I'm celebrating my birthday, my 60th birthday, with my new coworkers at my new job in a new country. I've spent the first 59 years of my life living in the state of Wisconsin. After my children were gone, I decided I wanted something different. So I applied and accepted a job as a first grade teacher at the American School of Kuwait in the Persian Gulf. So here I am on my 60th birthday in Kuwait, realizing that I'm about to find out that things are very different here than I've been used to in Wisconsin. First hint came when we new teachers tried to get our driver's license. You know, in the U.S., we're 16, you go to DMV, you take a test, you get a permit, you practice with your parents, you're all set. You got a driver's license. The Indian maid at our school told us she'd been waiting for a driver's license for 10 years. We didn't know if we were going to get a driver's license. Well, one night, about 3 weeks later, bus pulls up to our teacher building where we all live, big high rise. Announcement says, all the teachers who want to get driver's license, get on the bus, please. So it's midnight, we walk onto the bus. Bus drives out into the desert, 40 miles into the desert, in black as can be. We come upon a concrete building. In the building is one Kuwaiti man. He's got his lovely distache on, his black thobe. And in the building, also with him, are all these things. On the walls are handprints. He says, line up, I'm going to take your fingerprints. He takes our fingerprints, all 10 of them. He says, go wash up at the sinks and get back on the bus. Next morning, we go to school. There's an announcement. All the new teachers, you may come to the office and get your driver's license. That's the DMV in Kuwait. We learned about a lot of different disparities between groups of people in Kuwait. 80% of the workers in Kuwait are from foreign countries. And the person who employs you is a Kuwaiti citizen, must be a Kuwaiti citizen. That person's responsible for everything you do as an employee. They're responsible for your hours, for your shifts, for your salary, and also for housing. Now, our school had built 2 great big, beautiful high-rise buildings. We had free apartments, all furnished. They're overlooking the Persian Gulf, beautiful. We had a swimming pool. We had a shuttle bus to school. In the high-rise building next to us were Bangladeshi construction workers. They were living 10 to a room. We could see them. We'd look out our windows, and there they were, hanging their laundry in the windows. We'd run into them on Fridays, their only day off, where they were playing cricket in the sand. We saw them at the bodega. which was in between our buildings. 10 guys to a room. Later in the semester, we learned that the Indian and Filipino embassies were full of maids and nannies whose employers either abused them, didn't pay them, but did not return their passports. They lived at the embassy, and many of them had lived there for years, and they couldn't get back to their country. One night, about 3 a.m., I'm awakened by the sound of men yelling and a huge commotion outside. I go to my window. I don't hear any police sirens, no ambulance, no fire trucks. Had no idea what was going on. Looked at the Bangladeshi building. They're all throwing their furniture out the window. Mattresses, furniture, beds, all of them, throwing it out, raining down into the sand below. I had no idea what was going on. However, next morning I got to get on the, oh, that was bad. You don't want to know
This is also a strategy for getting to know someone if you don't get their story. So,
Beverly, you might mention that after this, there's a mingling process. And you can ask, what was the rest of your story?
that's right. Thank you for bringing that up. We'll have some refreshments, and it'll be fun to hear additional pieces of people's stories. All right, so let's see who's next. Simon. Hey, Simon, are you here? Oh, yeah, come on, hasten.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering whether I should throw this away. No? I should use it, okay. This is about my mother's secret and its impact on me. I was about 12 years old when I learned that my mother was a spy. She was part of British intelligence, and in those days, a spy meant something like, does anyone remember Odette? There was a movie about Odette. She was a brilliant spy and fell into enemy hands who tortured her and killed her. So I was a bit apprehensive to hear that my mother was in that kind of business. And in any case, my father, when we're talking about World War II here, my father was a Battle of Britain ace fighter pilot. He took most of the credit. But as the years unfolded, it became obvious that the Enigma secret was far more important than anything my father could do. What had happened was that the German code had been broken, and we were literally reading all of Hitler's mail to his generals. So, in her later years, my mother came to live here in Warwick, and just as she was approaching the end of her days, I took my dictaphone to her bedside to capture some of her last reminiscences. And of course, as far as Enigma was concerned, she told me a lot, but there were a couple of things that stood out. The one was that it was 10 years, maybe 15 years into her marriage to her husband, my father, when they each discovered that they were part of the Enigma secret. Somebody used a word like source, which was the word that was used for all the ultra intelligence. And the one turned to the other and said, "You were part of Ultra too," 15 years into their marriage. That's how secret it was. My mother, who did a couple of maps for Winston Churchill, also told me that Churchill had made it clear that with a secret of this order, you could never give pure, unadulterated ultra out to anyone without there being some kind of corroborating backup info. So that became quite difficult. Because she got in a troop ship, she went out to Alexandria and set up what was called the Y service there. And she had to come up with corroborating background. So on one occasion she told me an American colonel got very, very angry with her because she'd given him intelligence there's going to be an attack at dawn. He said, "What's your backup?" Her backup was flimsy, and he was furious. Of course, the attack happened at dawn, and he got a little bit more credibility, but that was a kind of problem that my mother was dealing with all the time in distributing this intelligence. Anyway, I mentioned Odette at the early part, and so as my mother is lying there telling me her stories, I'm thinking, "Mum," in fact, I asked her this question, "Mum, what happens if you get caught? You've got this incredible secret. What do you do if the Nazis capture you?" And she said, "We had a way of ending it." Mum, what was that? I can't tell you. Thank you very much.
I should leave that up. That was yeah, it's really something. All right. Oh, Mark Arnowitz.
So in 1959, when I was 7 and my brother was 4, my brother won a bicycle on Captain Kangaroo. So we lived in Lincoln Park. A card arrived in the mail, and give the redeemer one bicycle, based on age appropriateness. So we all piled into the car, me, my father, my brother, and myself, and we went to, in Boonton, Marcello's Sporting Goods. Some of you might remember. So we get out of the car, and we're all excited, and my father says, "Now, wait a minute." He says, your brother is 4. So if we go home with a bicycle, it'll be a little tiny bicycle, and then I'll have to buy you a bigger bike. But if you're Randy and he's Mark, then we get to go home with a bigger bike, and with the money we save, perhaps we can buy your brother a little bike. So he said, did you get all that? And my brother, like this, and me like, mesmerized, and my mother, how the mom rolls the eyes. We go into Marcello's Sporting Goods, and we scarcely remembered our new names. So my father pumps out his chest, and he's so excited, he's getting it over on somebody, finally. And he says, "Yes, here's the card from Captain Kangaroo, and maybe you saw my son on the show. And so this is Randy, and this is Mark. So he says, well, that's wonderful. The bicycle that you have won is this Schwinn 3-speed English racer over here. So I take a look at it. I mean, right? I take a look at it, and I said, that's nice. I said, but I like that one over there. So he says, well, it was a Columbia bike that I would prefer. So he says, because that's priced less than the English racer, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to throw in a bike for your little brother. So my father is beside him. He's quelling that he pulled this off. So we leave Marcella's Sporting Goods. I'm so sorry, Mr. Marcella. And we go into the parking lot, and we're loading the bikes into the car. And my brother didn't really care as long as we got to go to Dairy Queen. That was about, he didn't know from bikes. He didn't care. But there I've got this big, beautiful Columbia bike, and Randy's got this little green thing that kind of looked like a bike with training wheels and a bell and all that. And so we go home, and my father, bursting with energy, so excited, we go to Dairy Queen, we can have anything we want, and he proudly says to me and my brother, now this was 1959, and my mother's rolling her eyes, and it's like he says, so yeah, I hope you learned something today. And I had no idea what we learned. And my brother, was sucking his thumb in the back. He was happy as long as he got the Dairy Queen, the one on 23. So fast forward 60 years, I'm at an interfaith retreat in Newton, New Jersey, and we're having an icebreaker, and I'm meeting everybody, and the fellow says, hi, I'm Joe Marcella from Booton, the son of this fellow, of Marcella's Sporting Goods. Well, my stomach started to churn. Sweat broke out on my forehead. I became physically sick. And he started hyperventilating, and he said, well, what's the matter, Mark? I said, I have a confession to make. I said, do you think your dad remembered when, and then I unrolled the story to him about how we went in there and pulled this off. So he says, Mark, you have nothing to worry about. He said, not a week went by that my father didn't come home and say, you wouldn't believe it, we got another family who won a bike on Captain Kangaroo, and it was the older kid again. Well, to close out, Mr. Marcella said to his son, I hope you learned something from this. So, anyway.
How many people have we had so far? 4? Oh, just 3? Wow. Okay. What was one thing?
Well, I wanted to tell a story about my experience in first coming to Warwick when I was, I beg your pardon. My coming to Warwick as a dyed-in-the-wool New Yorker and not liking cars, and having to, once a year, come to have the car inspected since it was registered in New York, and I was spending my time outside of the city in New Jersey, where I basically grew up in the summer. And my previous experience with this was, and all built up in my head, this terrible experience of being in a really dirty waiting room and waiting and just the person calculating how much money they could get out of my very old car, which I only used to get out to away from the city and not at all there. And deciding, because I had come to Warwick to the drive-in as a real child, not as an adult child, and stopping at Leo Katie's, and everyone was so happy there. there was a cat that looked just like my sister's barn cat. Really exactly like it. It was a little creepy actually, because this is 20 years prior that cat had met its reward, and a parrot. And so every year subsequently, this is 2004, I would always look forward to coming and getting my car inspected and spending like $20 instead of like $300, and also just creating a series of memories about Warwick, which took something very mundane and not particularly rewarding, except that I had to do it legally, and it becoming a part of a wonderful fabric of my now 2.5-year residence here in New York, and Warwick is. So thank you. I'm going to be a rapid version.
Wow, that was cute. Okay, who's going to be? Hannelore. Chamber. I think after Hannelore, we'll take a little 5-minute breather and start again. Thank you.
So I'm totally going to ignore the light. And anybody who knows me knows I'll just keep talking anyway. So, well, some of my earliest memories involve puppets. My mother bought me some really beautiful German puppets when I was young, and I acted out all of my imaginative stories with them when I was very young. And she would take me to marionette theaters and small towns in Germany, in Bavaria. And then when we moved to Minneapolis, I got to experience Heart of the Beast Puppet Theater, if anybody knows them. They're sort of a thing. And I even got to help them make puppets for the Girl Scouts 75th anniversary in the Metrodome. Yes, big stuff. But then I continued to grow up, and puppets fell to the wayside, and instead I was focusing on other things and other art forms like oil painting and theater and stained glass. And then I moved after college to New York and was working a job and not having much time for art, but somehow always finding a way to see these cool puppetry performances like Basil Twist's Symphonie Fantastique, amazing. Labapalooza that St. Anne's Warehouse used to put on every May, amazing. And it always seemed like this incredible dream that, was just like, how did you even get into that at all? I have no idea. So fast forward to 2020. We have been living in Warwick for 11 years now. I have 2 sons, and I am the board chair of Wickham Works, and we put together a socially distant outdoor art installation that summer called Words from Warwick, which some of you might have seen. And I was helping one of our local artists, Karen Desher, whom I'm sure many of you know, install her artwork. And over the course of tying and twisting, we started talking about puppets, and she said, well, you can help the people who make the New York City Halloween parade puppets if you want to. What? That's amazing. Anybody who knows the Greenwich Village Halloween parade knows it starts off with these massive skeletons coming up 6th Avenue. So sign me up. And she forwarded me the email when it came out, and I went up the first day for the workshop, and they said that this is, I think, 2021, that this year this was the first Halloween parade after the pandemic, and the theme was all together now. And they had asked children to make drawings of themselves or people they love doing things outside, like kicking a soccer ball or playing tennis, and they invited my, at the time, 8-year-old son to submit a drawing as well. And he drew this really cute little himself on a bicycle, stick figure, and they ended up choosing it. So I got to learn how to build this 18-foot tall puppet of my son's drawing, and it looked identical. I got to learn the set painting skills, how you make a child's scribbles with crayon or marker come to life en masse, and at a massive scale. And because I had helped build these puppets, my boys and I were invited to be in the VIP section for the Halloween parade. So after, of course, we did the Village of Warwick Halloween parade and did a little trick-or-treating, we hopped in the car and rushed into the city and found our spaces right there at the front of the fence. And the parade began, and first came the guy in the red bike, and then the skeletons, the massive skeletons, and the ghosts flying through the air, and then behind them came these gigantic children's drawings, including my son's bicycle, which had articulated joints, pedaling its way up 6th Avenue towards us, 18, 20 feet tall, dancing around to All Together Now by the Beatles, and it was like absolutely surreal. So, oh my gosh, I did it. Did your clock stop? Thank you. Oh, and I brought a prop. This is my son's drawing, if you'd like to see. Yeah.
All right, I don't know what you want to do, but you have 5 minutes to wiggle. Okay, our next storyteller is Paul Massey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm doing an interesting thing right now. My youngest daughter, Amanda, she lives in San Diego. For my birthday last year, she bought me a subscription. I don't know if you've seen it or heard about it. It's called Storyworth. So what this is a subscription to me to tell stories that are prompted by my daughters or other children or relatives. They give me prompts to write stories for a book that in August of this year will get published as a coffee table book. Why she did that to me, I don't know. But so they send you prompts, and the prompts are things like, where did you go on vacation as a child? Let's see. Are you still in touch with any friends from high school? And then there was, what was your mom like when you were a child? Bam, nerve struck. Oh, that's a story, right? So I always felt that my mom didn't really love me because of her inability to show me. But she was very cold, very calculated, and it was very hard to deal with growing up. But there's a particular memory that really strikes a chord. When I was about 12 years old, my friend Eugene and I were riding our dirt motorcycles down the railroad track bed because that was the shortest distance to go from Eugene's house to mine. And what I didn't realize was about 50 feet behind us, there was a train coming up on us. So I got off the rails and got into the rail bed, and Eugene was about 50 feet ahead of me, and I yelled for him, screamed for him to stop, to get off the rail bed, and he couldn't hear me because of the engines of the bikes. And when the train caught up to him, he was on an overpass over a roadway. So when he finally realized the bike was behind him, he jumped the bridge. He jumped off the bridge, and the fall and the landing killed him instantly. So I rushed down there to see the scene of the accident, which was, as you can imagine, a pretty strong feeling for a 12-year-old. And once I had seen what happened and I understood what happened, I ran down the railroad tracks to my house. I was covered in Eugene's blood. I was covered in sweat. I ran into the house. I ran into the kitchen. My mother was in the kitchen, and I confronted my mother to tell her of this horrible, tragic news. And what she did was very cold and very calculated. And I just went back out the door and continued to run.
I really want to give space for that story, Paul. Thank you. Alan Clarkson.
I'm here tonight, and it's Dan Mack's fault, and I'll tell you why. My story starts in the mid-early 90s when I was on the faculty at NYU School of Medicine. A colleague and I had gotten permission from the university to buy an instrument, an important scientific instrument, an electron microscope. It's very expensive. And it really came out of money that we had on NIH contracts and grants, but it came through the university. It's a sort of a weird way of doing things. But it meant also that our department chair had final say on which one we chose. We looked at a lot of them, we made a choice, but we told her, and she said, that's all right. But my husband has a postdoc in his department, a German woman who is a professional electron microscopist. Let's ask her if this is the right choice. So, okay, we asked her. She said, I think this other one is better, not the one you chose. So the department chair said, yeah, all right, we'll go that way. That was disappointing, but it was okay. And she seemed like a nice person, and I helped her develop the laboratories necessary to support this. And I continued to work with her and helped her build a laboratory for another instrument, an expensive one, that she got money for on her own. And last April 10th was our 30th wedding anniversary. Anyway, so this is about growing up and not growing up. So working at a medical school, which in a research institution is pretty intense. And we worked hard 6 days a week. We decided we needed to do something to unwind. Both of us had motorcycles earlier in our lives, so we decided to do that again. So you can see where not growing up comes into this. So we both got motorcycles, and we would ride out on Sundays, sometimes a few hundred miles, sometimes 500 miles. It was sort of strange, but we enjoyed doing that. She also had a characteristic that a lot of people have or do as a child. Young girls love horses. Most of them outgrow that, that's okay, but they still have an affection for it. She didn't. So she ordered a horse from a breeder she knew in Germany and had it flown over here, and took it to a farm upstate in the Catskills for it to grow up. After it was a couple of years old and it could be trained, she brought it to a place near Warwick where it had facilities for dressage. So we would ride out on Sunday morning, and with a lot of friends, we had a club we rode with. She'd peel off and go see our horse, and then later in the afternoon, I would peel off, go meet her, we'd ride back. So she didn't have to grow up, and this was a good thing. As we were thinking about retiring, we decided, well, Warwick looked like a nice place to live. So we found a very patient real estate guy, and after a year of looking, we found a place that we liked. On the side of a hill, we look over the valley of Warwick, we can see Mount Peter in the wintertime. And she said her ultimate thing in life would be to have a barn so she can see her noses in the morning, the horses' noses looking out. So we built a barn. And the other part of growing up, boys are not so crazy about horses. There are exceptions, but boys for sure are crazy about tractors and trucks. So you can see what happened on the cover of Dirt magazine. That's got my tractor. And my big black truck is parked right outside the door here. So we are not grown up.
Desmond Smith.
These glasses. This is a story about storytelling. And it goes back, we have to go back about 26 years. And we have a young couple with 2 young girls, about 5 and 3, that have moved up to Warwick. And I, the husband, am a police officer down in the city, and I go into the Bronx and Manhattan at night and during the day, and then I come home at night. And we've always read to our girls, always read. My wife had stacks and stacks of books, and we always read stories, and we took turns. And maybe because of all the audiobooks I did, I was a little more animated, and I'd do voices and all sorts of characters. And so I'd come in, and my wife would look at me, and I'd be exhausted after maybe a 16-hour tour or something, and she'd say, they won't go to bed, you got to read them a story. So I'd go in, and I'd start to read a story, and I realized a couple of times, like, they're not going to sleep because the light's on. And so I turned the lights out one night, and I just continue with this story that I know, and I tell them the story, and they're out in 10 minutes, they're fast asleep, both of them. I go, this is great. So next time, whatever time I come back, and again, I get the look, and she says, they're up. And I'm like, okay. So I go in, and now I start just making up stories. And I create these 2 girl characters, Melody and Jingle, for my daughter, Nicole and Kimberly. One's a little sister, one's a big sister. And Melody and Jingle have all these adventures. They have grandparents that have a lighthouse and an island, and Grandpa has a Nautilus submarine, and they find treasures, and they have dinosaurs on islands, and it's just I don't even know where I'm going with these stories when I come home after time, but I knew enough to write them down, because if you missed a line from the last story, they caught it. So I now I'm in the city, and I'm working with a partner for years, and huge guy. Think Mike Tyson with red hair and freckles. And his name was Mike, too. And Mike would help me with these stories. I'd, Mike, geez, I need a story tonight. The girls, I'm out of ideas. And Mike would say, well, what about dolphins? Maybe they can talk to dolphins. And between running between jobs and fighting crime, we're writing down storylines in the car. So anyway, so this goes on, and we have another daughter years later, and I have to create a new character now. We resurrect all the stories again. We called her Little Tone, so it was Melody Jingle Little Tone. And in 2010, when they opened up by the way, we were in this library so many times with our children. And when the new library opened up, they had those plaques, those ceramic plaques, and my wife and my daughter surprised me on a Father's Day, and they said, read us a story, Daddy. We love you so much, from your girls, Nicole, Kim, and Jamie. Happy Father's Day. Yeah, so you can go in the library and you can still see that story now. It's not the end. Here we go. So my daughter, my oldest daughter, 4 years ago has a child in COVID, has a baby girl. And it was a difficult time for all of us, but as parents, we couldn't go up to the hospital, and my daughter had to bring the baby home, and my granddaughter was Harper. She just turned 4. And my daughter gives me the baby, and I'm holding the baby, and she says, and hands me the birth certificate, and says, Dad, I'd read it to Harper, and I'd give it. She says, "Dad, read the birth certificate." And the middle name on the child is Melody, so yeah, so so read them, be adventurous. It's unbelievable what they remember. Okay, and so thank you all.
What about Craig Roberts? I'm losing my touch here.
Yes. Yes, hello, I'm Craig. Now, it is New Year's Eve, 2012. Today, we moved my father from the St. Luke's Hospital to the Center Valley Nursing Home. We check into his simple, bleak room. There's this bare bulletin board on the wall that's been stripped of everything, and someone has scribbled on it in pen, but there's one thumbtack that's left for the future resident. I look at the bed, which has been lowered to the floor, and it's been wrapped in a plastic cover. It hasn't been made up yet. There's a fluorescent industrial light over the bed, and this metal nightstand, and this crappy-looking chair. I look down at my dad, who's laying there with his eyes open, not really knowing where he is, not realizing this could be the place where he's going to die. He grabs my hand, and he's intrigued by this band that I have around my wrist. Now, I actually expect him to say, "What the hell is that?" But then I realize that's a comment from a different time. I hear my mother outside talking with the nurses, and all of a sudden there's like a hoop and a holler as the people are getting ready for that evening's festivities. My father is startled, but he doesn't lose the grasp on my hand. And I look at him and I think, well, is he scared? Does he want comfort? And then I look in his eyes and I just see that lost child. And I think to myself, he's been given so much medicine with this condition, to help his memory, to stop his alcoholic drinking, his cholesterol, his blood thinner. They pulverize his food so he can swallow. He has to drink all his liquids through a straw. And I think, modern medicine really can help the condition, but it really destroys the soul. But I look into his glazed eyes and I think to myself, as he's holding my arm and holding my hand, Dad, you're 82 years old today, and I am 52. So if I follow my old man's timeline, I have about 30 years left to live the life I really want to live, to be the person I really want to be. Well, my father lasted a few more months after that. My mother would come in every day to visit him, and she put colored paper on the bulletin board and put up some greeting cards, and she tolerated the nasty roommate who wasn't too pleased to have to share a room. I remember visiting him around Easter, and she was all gung-ho. She brought in a basket, and she brought in this stuffed rabbit, and she gave it to him, and in his one moment of clarity, he said to me, "I need this like I need a hole in the head." Well, I went back to New York, and then I got word that they had transferred him over to the hospital again because he was passing. So I arranged my affairs in the city, and I boarded the bus to go into Allentown, Pennsylvania, and en route, I got word that he had died. So I quickly wiped my tears with my sleeve so I wouldn't make a scene on the bus. And I was thinking, I'm not crying because of his death. I'm crying because of the missed opportunities, the missed conversations that I never could have, and I never did have. When he first was diagnosed, I spoke to my therapist and I said, I'm really angry because now I won't have that opportunity where he's going to have that talk with me and he's going to say, I love you. You're my son, warts and all. And the therapist said to me, well, why are you waiting for him to speak? Why don't you have a conversation with him. He's still with you. He's still here. And I thought about that on the bus. And I remember that night when he was holding my hand and looking at my band. And I thought to myself, in that moment of silence, I think I finally got the acceptance that I so desperately craved. And then I realized, something? You don't always have to express your love with words. You can just express it with actions. And maybe the strongest love really are in those moments of silence. Thank you.
Oh, I think we have one name left, Deborah Walker.
It's March 2023. I'm on a plane on a runway in New York. The lights are very, very bright. I feel the air hitting my face. There's so much noise around me. I'm headed to my Mecca, Detroit. It's been about a year since I've been there. The last time was a more happy occasion. We were celebrating my brother's 30th birthday. This time, I'm trying to prepare myself to possibly see my dad for the last time. I put my headphones on, I'm trying to steady myself. I land. I'm in the car trying to figure out, what do I talk about? What am I gonna say in the room? My older sister's with me. My head is flooded with thoughts. I've never seen my dad cry. I don't want to upset him. I have so much respect for him. I want to be there and support him. I think about, do I say I forgive you for not coming to my wedding? Do I thank you for whoever in the family you talk to about not wanting me to leave the family? Usually, we talk about politics, religion, or sports. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't know what he thinks. I wonder if he wonders about me and God still. Me and God are good, but I don't want to have the conversation. So I'm thinking, all right, let's talk about sports. He's the one that showed me Barry Sanders and the Lions, and we would sit and watch the Tigers, and I fell in love with basketball and the Pistons at his feet. We finally get to the room. My thoughts are so fast and overpowering. I look at him. I'm trying to make sure I don't make him cry. I don't worry him. I'm thinking, where is your afro? Where is this black, beautiful afro? Who is this man in the bed? Where does the time go? He looks worried. He looks me in the eyes. He says, why are you here? I almost cry. I'm trying to not cry. In my mind, I'm saying, Dad, I'm showing up for you. I'm here for you. I find the words and I say, I'm here to see you. He says, pray. I think, of course I will pray. You taught me to pray. My sister and I are sitting on some hard wooden chairs. I see a pile of his books. I see his medicine on the counter. He talks about his medicine a little. We listen. I try to muster some words to say, like, who's your health proxy? You know we love you. We hope you get through this. He doesn't respond. He just looks. Time's moving like a snail. He falls asleep. I go to his side. I hug him. I kiss his forehead. We leave. I come back to New York. 2 months pass. I have the most vivid dream. We're like back in a church that I grew up in. It's so bright. It's like clouds are puffy along the floor, like we're preparing to sing. I see a few faces that mean family to me, my cousin, an old childhood friend. It's just so bright. The next day I wake up, I think, because I'm headed to the Mecca the next day, I'm thinking about Detroit, it's coming. My sister called me. She says he's died. I break out and crying in the garage. I'm crying because he's dying or he died, but it's mostly because I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that we didn't close the loop more. I'm disappointed that my little guys won't get to spend time with him. I land on, we tried. We did our best. We loved each other. But I am disappointed.
We're incredible, aren't we? We have so many amazing stories. Before we close this segment, I wondered if anybody in the audience would like to tell a story. Come on up. Sure, introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Hi. I don't know if I could follow that. I would like to give some space as well. Yeah, that was beautiful to share. Hi, good evening. My name is Indigo Suarez. I'm a poet. I'm not a storyteller. My first time here. And I'd like to introduce myself first. I am from Colombia, South America, and originally from there, but by the way of Brooklyn, New York. Brooklyn. Anybody from Brooklyn here, but have lived in Warwick for 10, 12 years. My children attended the Warwick Valley School System, all of them, and now they're adults. And wanted to read this poem. My favorite poets are Neruda and Keats, so I'm a little old school as well. So my poem is about the jazz era. I do have a little accent still, so you could hear it in my words. So excuse my English and Spanish, both. And I will read it. It's called Ode to a Juniper Tree. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to read it for you, so I hope you do like it. And it goes like this. It goes, you are so lovely with your opposite as shape. You look like a jazzy lady, moving your hips to the beat, to a song called Caravan, on a late night in Harlem. You carry a jade green ostrich fan. It's larger than life. When your berries blossom, they look like exotic purple hearts. Hand-picked sapphires and royal jewels covering you, making you sparkle. Sophisticated woman. You smell obsessing. Balance between green, so fresh, so clean. You smell like cedar, lemons, and apples. Your scent is unique. It lingers in the wind. The mountains, they frame you. The warmth is in the valleys. Your shine, your splendor, it comes towards you. Mockingbirds, they join you. They sing with you in a chorus. Sing along, sing. The birds praise you in their beauty. They chirp in a prelude. You kiss the moon. You kiss the moon in a song. The night shadows, they follow you. And you look phenomenal. You look phenomenal, my lady. You are a juniper tree. That's it.
Anyone else? Oh, come on. We've never had this much going on.
Thank you. A couple years ago, someone posted on Facebook that they were looking for a place to put their cat down. No one would put the cat down. So I reached out and I said, I'll come get your cat. And so I went and I picked up the cat. He was a black cat, and I brought him home, and he was the weirdest creature I think I've ever known. He mixed together every weird characteristic I could have imagined a living creature having. He was dangerous also. My husband took him to the vet to get him checked out, and he clamped onto the vet's shirt. They couldn't get him off. They had to pry him off. He was incontinent, and it was cold. It was during the cold months. And I worked downstairs. I worked from home. This was during COVID. And he would go to the bathroom while I was working. I could hear it happening. And we were constantly trying to figure out ways to clean him up. And I was terrified of him. I didn't want to put him down, right? I had in my mind that he could be saved, right? Like I was the rescuer. I went and picked up this cat, you know? And so I didn't want the kids touching him. But the kids, they found him anyway. And some days I would be working, and in between conference calls, I would hear him going to the bathroom up the wall, and I would cry. Actually, I have a friend in here that has heeded some of my tears. I would call her, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do with this cat. And then the warm months came, and thank God, we got him a little house outside and a heating pad. And he wasn't very mobile. We got him lots of medicines. There were lots of issues. I don't even remember what they were at this point. But he had many medicines, and we had him in this little cat house. And weird things also began to happen from there. The neighborhood kids, they all loved him. I would ask them not to touch him because he was very dangerous in terms of the biting. But he followed them around. He couldn't walk very well. But he would follow the neighborhood kids around, and they would all come over and they'd come to visit him. And one night, we went out to check on him, make sure he was okay. And there was a raccoon in his house, and we had a panic. And that was when I realized I actually loved this strange little creature that had come into my life and created so much havoc and destroyed my downstairs. And then we found him, and he and this raccoon would just sit across from each other on the deck, and they were like friends, you know? But he was incontinent. He had a lot of problems, as I mentioned before, and no matter what we did, he was just not well, and he would experience fly strike. And if those of you that know about this can happen within 8 hours, and so we would scrub him every single day. And he would still experience it. And I took him to the vet after we had him maybe a full year, and said, I don't know what to do anymore. He's not okay. We can't keep him clean. You know, he's experiencing the fly strike. I can't have him inside. And they were like, I think it's time for him to be put down. And I remember I put him in the little cat carrier, and I took him to a different vet because the vet that he had clamped onto was not gonna take him. And I cried the whole way there. And he purred in the seat next to me. And I took him to the vet and I sat in the room with him and I was just looking at him and he was looking at me and made eye contact with me when they put him down. And it was the weirdest experience for me of love and something so unexpected. What business did I have taking him from the situation that he was in the first place and bringing him into my home and the danger that was there, you know? But he changed. It was like he changed relationships. He changed the dynamic of my home. And then I realized when I left without him that night, like I think we put him down 3 years ago, and I still cry about him. And his name was Takumi. And my children, my youngest child, I think was 3 when we put him down. And when she tells me about all the people that she loves, she goes through this list, and she always includes Takumi.
Wow, we did it. Another wonderful evening. Thank you, everyone, for not only, I call it finding your brave to come up here and tell a story, but also for you coming out and loving the fact that you're hearing these stories. So stay a few minutes more and have some refreshments and ask more questions about the stories you heard. Good night.